Yeah, keep holding this for a second. So how's everybody doing tonight? We are so excited to be here at the Rise. It's just so exciting. Okay, so we've got a lot of historic, we got a lot of originals. So it's gonna be a party. Let's get another paper going.
We're good. You have a good time. Hey, Fred. Hey, how you doing? Oh, you're on mute.
Hey there.
Hey,
Sorry, I was arranging my windows.
That's okay.
My screen. How you doing? Steve is not there. You're the one.
So yeah, Steve's at he has a concert that he's at, and so he might join us, I think, a little later, but in an hour. So it's early for him there. What time is it for you?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. Oh, that's not bad.
11 a.m. is fine. I've got time to walk my dogs, have breakfast, do my gym, and
What kind of dog?
I have 2 dogs.
You have 2 dogs? What kind?
I have a beagle and a schnauzer, mini schnauzer.
Wow, that's nice.
So
They're
they
nice.
get along well. They're old dogs. They're 15 and 12 years old. So
What? 20?
15 and 12?
12. I thought you said 20. I was gonna say.
15 for schnauzer is quite old, and she's got difficulties to walk now. And mini schnauzer, 12 years old, she's full of energy.
Yeah.
Small dogs live longer.
Much longer. My sister had a Great Dane, a blue Great Dane. Died at 8 years old.
Yeah, 8 years old is usually
And they
the
have
case.
stomach issues, like big time. So
Yeah, they have stomach issues, they have hips issues, they have cancer issues, they have nails, toes, teeth. I mean, big dogs is it's fun
Well, it's
between
fun if they don't
1.5 and 5 years old. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he was a big dog though. I mean, he walked in, he was like a horse.
Yeah. I like big dogs, but
Me too.
yeah.
So I don't know. I know Anne sent a message, and I don't know if Richard is back from from Hawaii.
He sent a message last Wednesday saying he was not, and 3 o'clock was too early. So maybe he's back, and at 5 o'clock is too early now.
Yeah. Well, was that Wednesday or because what is he? He's probably should be around.
That was Wednesday.
Yeah, he should probably be around noon today. So he should be fine. Manu is it's always 5 a.m. for him. That's tough on a Sunday.
5 a.m. is the best time on a Sunday when I have clearing appointments with Jane. Jane Johnson, she does clearing. She's like a therapist. It's always 5 o'clock Sunday morning.
A.M.?
A.m., yeah. Best time of the day. Woke up at 4, have time to get things done, and then I'm...
What time do you go to bed?
Oh, it depends between 9:30 and 11.
So you go between 5 and 6 hours sleep?
Well, that's on those days. I'm not always up so early.
Oh, okay. I thought you were getting up every day.
But no, but I like that time for the clearing sessions. It's quiet. There's nothing to interrupt, to bother, to yeah. No, I need my 7 or 8 hours sleep. That's
I would prefer that actually, but I mean,
some people can do without, but I need that.
I mean, I go in spurts. Sometimes I do. It's sometimes like I can go a little bit, for a period of time without that amount of sleep, but it does catch up with me at some point.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and usually it's about after a week, I really start to feel it. But yeah, I mean, it's
I found it was easier when I was younger.
Oh my God, yeah.
To crush the sleep.
I feel the difference now with everything. Even I don't know, it's a lot. It's a lot right now. It's a lot to get back into shape and get to I don't know. I think part of it's mental because it was so much easier before. And now it's like there's a lot more effort that has to be put into it. Because you could have a good time and do whatever you wanted, and you'd still be able to kind of go out and have and still kind of feel good.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, those days are done. Now I need to be mature. So how did you meet Kelly?
I met Kelly in 2004 at a 3 days training, Kiyosaki training
Oh yeah.
in Brisbane, Australia.
Oh, so you were in Australia then?
We flew together with Lucy. We flew to Australia for this 3 day training, and then we spent another 2 weeks in Australia. We had a road trip all the way to South Melbourne, Adelaide, and then back up north to Ayers Rock, and then we flew back from there.
Nice. Do you enjoy it?
Yes, yes, very good memories. Very good memories. I've always wanted to go again and do another road trip, but we didn't have the chance. I went again to Australia, but we did not do a road trip at those times. I wanted to cross the Simpson Desert, like
Yeah.
get maybe 3 cars and cross the Simpson River, Simpson Desert with a 4-wheel drive Toyotas or something like that. And but that did not happen. It's quite an adventure. Some people do it. They have fuel drops. They have people drop the fuel tanks, fuel barrels on the way. It's quite an adventure. Yeah. And then I still want to do it. Drive from China to Europe all the way through Russia.
How
And
long would that take?
I don't know. 2 drivers, 3 days. You drive, I sleep, I
Really?
sleep.
3 days. Wow.
But I don't want to do it so fast. But yeah, you get 2 drivers, 2 days and a half, 3 days maybe, non-stop.
That's
Maybe maybe
yeah.
3 weeks. Like you got to take your time when you do that. Maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You're
You-
interested? You like to do that?
I would love to do it if I
Yeah.
could. Yeah.
Then
For
there's a South Road. We could take the South Road through Burma. It's a little bit hot at this moment.
yeah. I do know that.
Iran, it's a little bit hot at this moment. Ukraine, that's on the South Road.
Yeah, that'd be a little bit bumpy of
So
a.
the South Road is hot now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Even in February. It would be yeah, I was actually listening to some of the predictions about the war itself and the energy costs and how they're looking at the outlook for winter and how that's actually impacting how they're going to operations are, and the potential actually of what operations are going to be carried out, or even the possibility of even negotiating some kind of agreement. But Russia is really hurting right now with their energy prices. They've had a lot of issues, but it's
You mean Russia is hurting with energy crisis? Is that what you're saying?
they're having energy issues, and that it is something. I mean, both of them are really. I mean, so is Ukraine, but Russia's about to have they're I know that they're concerned about the inconsistency of their power in the winter.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
their capacity has been hit pretty hard to produce fuel.
Yeah, that's a narrative from the Western media. I don't believe it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't believe it. I think it's bullshit. I think Russia has no problem with energy. They always have problems with energy by end of August because everybody's driving back home from holidays. So there's always a little bit of stranglehold for the gasoline. But this is over. This is over. I don't think that. I don't believe any of that. So
Wow. That's interesting to hear because I like to hear objective opinions. Like, no, I mean, that's what I heard in The Economist the other day. And that's
The Economist, if you take your news from Russia or China from The Economist, you've got a starting point problem.
really represent the ground. Yeah, that was
I don't think Russia has any problem. I think the pace of advance is much faster. They took Pokrovsk. Is that Pokrovsk? They took it. It's nearly done now. In 3 months. This is accelerating. This is accelerating. The whole Ukraine thing is going to break at some point. I think Russia is holding back because if they go too fast, they would probably trigger strong reactions from Europe and US.
yeah, that's true.
These people in NATO are going to panic, so they just steady as she goes. And
That's an interesting point. I hadn't heard that, but it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that, if they overreach, that it could be problematic, obviously.
yeah,
That could trigger a response that obviously that's not going to be one that's in favor of them. So so how did you get into all the math that how did you get your math background? Or essentially, did you go to study it in school, or are you a self-study, or you really
oh, mathematics. I'm an engineer, so that's qualified engineer in agriculture, but we still got some math to do.
with agriculture?
Yeah, and yeah, well, it's interesting because it gives me insights into everything that's biology and stuff like this, so I understand that quite well. And the math background is because there's a common body of knowledge for all engineers in France, and that's physics, chemistry, this kind of stuff. And then starting 2013, for 5 or 6 years, I was back to studying nearly full time with massive online courses. You heard about that,
Yeah.
Coursera and edX, and I redid the whole math program and went further than what I did at school. So I really did enjoy that. So I did the whole physics, math, and a lot of computer programming. I relearned computer programming, and I'm programming simulations, visualizations of physical phenomena, properties of stuff, and that really helps me understand things.
So are you doing that now too? I mean, are you
Yeah. Well, now no, because my computer's got SSH problem. I had to reinstall some software and then it fucked up, and then I had to bootstrap the SSH. But then now the SSH that I used to have that was linked to my computer programming downloads and updates and all that is no more the same, so it's making problems. So I have not been able to update my computer programs, my whole suite of computer languages for the last 2 years, and I have not looked into it because I was busy with taking care of Lucy and all that. So I have to reinstall the whole computer, but then it's a big issue because there's Lucy's computer, there's my computer, and I don't want to lose anything, and I don't want to lose access. There's a lot of stuff that I have access to on Lucy's side of things that I don't have the password, but the password is cached. So I can have access to these things because the password is cached. If I reinstall, I have to make sure I don't need to go back to that. So it's a big headache for me to solve that.
Yeah.
So at this moment, I don't do much. This week I solved my YouTube problem because YouTube is insisting that I pay in order to avoid ads. They don't accept ad blockers anymore.
Oh, you were using
So I had a temporary fix that stopped working because they patched it. And then using the Lucy's laptop, I installed a YouTube downloader, and now I'm downloading batch batch links of YouTube stuff so I can have access to YouTube. I'm not going to pay. I tried to pay because I didn't want to go down and do that. I tried to pay, and because I'm in China, my credit card's in China, they say, we don't accept that card. Even it went through PayPal. They say, we don't accept that card. I say, well, look, if you don't want my money, I'm not
Yeah,
going
what are you
accept
gonna do? I mean, is it, I thought, are they censored over there? That's my understanding. They are.
YouTube is everything Google is blocked in China. The reason it's blocked is because
Oh, it
same
is.
with
Everything is blocked. Oh, I didn't know.
both Facebook and YouTube and Google refuse to abide by local laws, by China law, regarding disclosure of communications from suspected terrorists and stuff like this. And that was at the moment there were lots of terrorist attacks in Xinjiang in 2008, 9, 10. There was a big increase of terrorist attack in Xinjiang. Xinjiang is the western region of China, the Uyghur area.
Yeah.
And so, because they refused to abide by this, by the law, China blocked them.
I thought they had an agreement where they actually gave up a lot of the privacy issues that they were concerned about in order to gain access to the market. And for some reason, I thought they had an agreement at some point, but that was so long ago that that was maybe before 2008 or something like that. So that was way back, and I just didn't.
Yeah, they had agreement. YouTube, Google had offices here in China. They had a big operation going on, the search engine, and they had a huge operation here in China, and they closed everything. They decided to go away.
Interesting. Wow. Well, that's a big market for them to walk away from.
It's closed. They lost it. They're not coming back.
And Facebook's the same?
Yeah, Facebook the same. Facebook the same.
Wow. That's a big deal. But well, so then with the agriculture, like what kind of agriculture did you focus on?
I didn't focus on anything. I mean, it's general agriculture. It was mostly 4 seasons climate, not tropical, but there was a little bit of tropical agriculture. So it was Europe type and US type and northern hemisphere temperate climate type of agriculture.
Did you do anything with like kind of hydroponic farming or vertical farming?
A little bit, but that was it in its infancy at that time. There was
I
a
wanna show you.
hydroponic and vertical farming as tests and possible development for the future more than something established.
Hang on, let me show you this.
I was at school in the 1980s. I graduated in 1985 or 6, I forgot. 6 probably. Yeah.
Let me see this. I'm gonna show this to you. Hang on.
I looked into that a few years ago. I looked into vertical farming and hydroponic farmings for fresh produce. I wanted to invest production somewhere in Europe and all that, but cost of energy is too high.
See if you're able to access that. I just put it in the chat. If you're not, I can send you another.
Hey, what am I doing here? Stop share. Chat. You put something in the chat.
Yeah. Did you see it?
I opened the link.
Did it open?
Reforming food production, an eco-friendly gigafactory for energy, agriculture, food and beverage being built in Germany could serve the model for industry. Okay. You interested in that?
Yeah, my friend, he's my friend actually. He's talking about coming to Philadelphia if he's
Okay.
if he's given the opportunity. Yeah. I mean, he did a lot of the UN's. He did like essentially the policy written on on agriculture. I think he might have been involved in the zero hunger part as well. Yeah, but it's an interesting concept. And so, and then there was somebody else that was talking about building a group of biodomes all over the country as a way of actually producing food locally. And so, obviously that would create, local economies. And right now we have a lot of food deserts in poor areas where they're not necessarily getting anything nutritious. And that's desperately needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There's two trends here in China. One is automation. They have automation of harvest, automation of plantations, and all that for cotton in Xinjiang for all these things. And they have also green buildings, high rises that produce food. So, but it's starting. But the way China does things, it's starting, and once they see it works, it's going to be really, really fast.
I would imagine that it would be like once I mean, if it catches on. One, I mean, it's a security issue, to be quite honest.
Yes, China is very sensitive in terms of food. The people in charge remember being hungry.
Yeah, that's true. There wasn't people forget that. There was a
and
time.
they know that hungry population is prone to revolt, so they want
That's
to.
exactly right. If they're fed, then it's a hell of a
Yeah,
lot.
there's never been a revolution in the world without people being hungry.
In fact,
So,
that's really generally what causes I remember when they had the Arab Spring,
yeah.
and they thought they're like, oh well, this is the Facebook revolution, that they got tired of I guess was it Mubarak? I forget that was in charge at that time. They got tired of Egypt's president and
Oh,
that
Sisi?
was
Was that
that.
Sisi? Was that Sisi, the president? Or is today's president Sisi? The Muslim Brotherhood guy?
Oh no, the Muslim Brotherhood came in, I think, afterwards.
Okay.
Let me see. Um, uh, anyway, they were saying, um, uh, saying that it was the Facebook revolution, right? And it was really the price of food had gone up substantially, like over the past 6 months. Like, so people were hungry.
Yeah. Price of grain, the flour and stuff like that. I remember
Yeah,
now that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually that they were talking about some of the top inventions of uh you know of humanity, essentially, that, and the idea of like kind of fertilizer, the ability to produce fertilizer that would actually then that yield food, and that was Fritz Haber way back in the day. um that he that was one of the biggest advances in human history.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think of that?
Hard to say. Once people were hunter gatherers, and diet was like 1,800 to 2,000 calories per day. Once they started farming, the diet went down to 1,100 to 1,200 calories per day. So, and there was a sudden rise of the population because it was easier, I guess, to raise babies and all that when you're not on the way. So I don't know. I think there's no turning back. But I think the rise of agriculture did not do a lot to increase the quality of life. I
Oh,
think
really?
I think quality of life of hunter-gatherers was better than the quality of life of the.
But do you think that that's because of was a synthesizing ammonia? Uh, and they said that that was essentially. I listened to somebody from Dow Chemical say that that was one of the biggest advancements um, in human history. But is that because of the quality, or it's not because of the quantity? Clearly, right?
Well, I think both. I think both.
Really?
When you hunter-gatherer, you eat what you find, and then diversity and quality is spread. Is one day is good, one day is bad, and you can choose what you eat because if you find a good one and a bad one, you eat the good one. Obviously, when it's the end of winter and what's left in the grain storage is rotten and eaten by rats and all that, that's all you have to eat.
That's true.
Famines happen in spring.
What's that? Happens in spring?
Famine,
Oh yeah, usually.
famines happen in spring.
That's so true. That's
You
so
need
true.
Russian gas to manufacture to extract nitrogen from the atmosphere.
That's true. I mean,
Without Russian gas, the cost is prohibitive.
it wouldn't be worth it. Interesting. Yeah. I mean,
Especially in Western Europe.
huh. So do you look at all the pricing models for that?
No.
No. All right. So you do the actual biological modeling then
For
for agriculture. That's your
no,
focus.
no, no. I read books. Uh,
You don't
and
focus on the economics though, do you? Or okay.
the economics. The problem with the economics, to me, the problem with the economics is that the yardstick you use to measure is elastic.
Yeah.
So there's no fixed point. It's very, very difficult. You measure everything in US dollar or in some sort of currency, local currency or estimate of value. But this changes over time.
Yeah,
So you
sure.
can,
Yeah. I mean, that's where the dynamic equilibrium in a way.
yeah. Well, sort of. It's like moving in a maze with mirrors that are not flat.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's all deformed. No, I'm not. I don't like economics. I'm not attracted by economics. I try to understand it because I've got some investments and stuff like this, and you've got to keep on top of that. But no,
Well,
no,
how do you use Bucky's work in your work?
I don't know. I think it's shaping my thinking, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that's for me too.
I don't really have an immediate use of it. There's no direct use. It shapes my thinking, it shapes my decisions, but I don't refer to Bucky every time I have
It
to
shapes,
make a
yeah,
decision.
it shapes mine as well. I mean, it shapes the perspective that you take, but it also, um, I think that there's an ethics to it. There's an ethics to Bucky's ideas.
Yes, yes, there's an ethics which very much relates to the ethics of China's development. It's the,
Yeah.
the the slogan, propaganda slogan, is for the benefits of all. What they do should benefit all of humanity. It's for the greater good, for the good of all of humanity. But Of course, it's a slogan and it's propaganda and all that, but it translates into what they do is arguably for the benefit of all, and it shapes everybody's thinking too. Say, should I do that? Should I not do it? And part of the decision grid is, does it benefit me only, or does it benefit the community and everybody else as a consequence? So that's really interesting what's happening here.
What do you think of the social credit score?
There's no social credit score here. That's a legend.
Is it
These are-
really?
This doesn't exist. It's a legend. It's
Really?
there is. We've got every payment goes through two apps here. It's through Alipay, which is Alibaba, the company Alibaba,
Yeah.
Alipay, and WeChat, which is the equivalent of
Yeah.
Facebook chat. The
That's what
and
X was trying to do.
your ability, it's like a credit score, but that's a credit score. That's you have whether you're a good customer or not a good customer.
Right,
That's
whether you pay your bills or not. But I thought that there was
yes.
social credit.
And it's very useful when you start doing transactions with people that you don't know. It's say because one is everything is on internet now, so you don't get to meet those people. And second is everything goes so fast that you don't get to spend the time to know them.
Yeah.
But you have an indication as to whether or not you have a good chance that everything will be fine, or that these people are twisted and they will find trouble to you. So it's not a social credit, it's a credit score.
It sounds like it's a better business bureau and credit score in one, meaning that your ability to complete the transaction is registered, but also your ability to pay your bills, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but it's not, how to say, it's not in your face.
Well, you
It's,
don't have, do you have like, so do you have one if you're going to work somewhere?
I don't know. I'm not working.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know.
But if you were,
But
like,
starting 2016, something like that, there's been a lot of experiments. The way it works here, when a law is going to be enacted, is depending on the scope of the law, there will be some trial tests, which will be local, like in a small area in a city,
yeah,
or it will be citywide, or sometimes county-wide, or sometimes province-wide, depending on the scope of the law. For the law on social scoring,
yeah.
social scoring, it was proposed, and then the committee up there said, "Oh, okay, let's give it a try." And so they set up some experiments in many cities, in many provinces, and in many areas, and every area had their own set of parameters in order to implement this and to collect the ID. And it's general, it's not just for this law, it's general. They collect the feedback from the population. If you are in the area, they do a test. You're told they're going to do a test, and that you have the possibility to give your feedback at this place, at this internet place. You can go and feedback and all that. And then every so and so, they consult all the feedback, they adjust the implementation of the law, and then they go back and say, okay, we change this and that based on your feedback. And from now on, let's reset the thing and tell us what you think about it. And it goes on until everybody seems to be happy or mostly happy with the implementation. Then it goes back to Beijing, and if there's several implementations, it goes back. It may be going back in tests, and there's several back and forth like this until the law is implemented. And when the law is implemented, they know people like it. They know that the way they're going to implement it, people will accept it. And they know it's going to work for them and for everybody.
Wow.
So there's no democracy in the sense of Western, where you have
No.
two or three people say, "Hey, I want to be the king," and all that, and then the guy that pleases most people gets elected. No, it's not how it works. But the democracy works in the implementation of the legislation. It's there's a feedback like this,
That's
and
actually an interesting
and it's
way.
for every law, and it works very well because nobody comes from Beijing and say, okay, we're going to do this, and it doesn't work, and then everybody, take it off, it doesn't work, and it never happens. It never happens.
Interesting. Because I know the Chinese had studied the Russian reform policies like perestroika and
Yes.
like that. They studied them very closely in order to make sure that their brand of communism didn't fail. And so, which makes, obviously makes sense. But I think that the other aspect of it was that they also invited a lot of like capitalistic policies in the sense that they did have like financial trading instruments that are pretty advanced now.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well,
they're
China
pretty,
invented paper money.
yeah, big time.
Yeah,
And
they invented it like,
derivatives and everything. They have a lot going on, even with they even have like kind of a venture capital element to it, like going like to a certain degree. So these are
yeah.
very like kind of more capitalistic type of um economic policies versus truly being
From a very high point of view, the main difference between the US and China is in terms of economic policies is that in the US, if you have money, you have influence. In China, mostly is if it's in the interest of the people, it will go through. Even you have a lot of money, you don't have that much influence.
So why do they feel it's so necessary to have so many billionaires? Because that seems to be a priority to them.
No, it's not a priority.
Oh.
It's a consequence of it's a
Consequence of the fact that they're growing, I guess.
when they decided when Deng Xiaoping took power in 1980, something like that, he said we have to reform, and he had to reform based on the Mao style system and big crisis, big political crisis after the four people's Mao's wife and three other guys tried to take power and all that. So it was very dogmatic, very hardcore communist, and he said we have to reform and be more capitalistic. But he could not say that like this. So we had to reform and become communist with Chinese characteristics. And the Chinese characteristics was that we have to act like capitalists in order to compete with the rest of the world and open up with the rest of the world. And he said, some people will get rich first.
Mm.
So the quantity of rich people here, the number of rich people here is a consequence of that. But mostly, most people now, I mean, the China has 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they have revealed to the world that they had eradicated extreme poverty and taken out of poverty 800 million people in the last 40 years, which is correct. They have taken 800 million people out of poverty in the last 40 years. So mostly now, the focus is on redistribution. So some people still get rich, but it's on redistribution. And it's no more a low-wage country. If you want to go
No, it's
low-wage
not.
country,
But
you go to India, you go to Cambodia and Laos, stuff like this. China is no more low wage. The advantage of going to China for manufacturing today is automation
Yeah,
and
true.
availability of qualified engineers and the middle management
Qualified engineers as well as
and full supply chains. That is, you
that.
can.
Well, I heard different things about that because I heard they're trying to cut into the delivery time, and that's one of the things 3D printing is actually focused on.
Where 3D printing cannot compete with mass production.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Maybe later, but not yet. So it's always cheaper if you're going to manufacture 1 million products. It's always cheaper to make a mold and have traditional injection machines than to 3D print it. But if you're going to make a small run of 300 pieces, then 3D printing is the way to go.
Yeah, I have a friend that's actually talked about getting into that market.
Hi, Manu.
Hey,
How are
Manu.
you? Wow. I was thinking I'm very late, but it's only 3 people here in the call now.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're disappointed to see us.
No, I'm not disappointed. I'm happy to see you guys.
How are you doing?
I'm
Yeah,
fine.
the advantage of, I mean, when I say supply chain, is that everything's available locally
Oh, I see. Okay.
or
Well,
industrial supplies. That is, you do not need to wait 3 weeks for something to be shipped to you, components, parts, stuff like this. It's all available locally, or you can have it made locally, which was not the case when I opened my factories. When I opened my factories, it was low wage. Nothing was available readily. And supply chains were very long and very difficult to, and there was, well, the supply chain was very difficult, especially for raw material, to establish. And there was no middle management available.
oh, interesting.
But now things have changed. Things have changed tremendously. The factories I visited thousands of factories. Factory I was visiting in the 1990s in China were more modern than the factories I visited in Europe and especially in the US. In the US, there were factories that dated from 1950. In China, the factories, the oldest ones were 5 years old. So machinery was new and factory building and all the organization was new. And all that does not exist anymore. They have raised everything and rebuilt it. And now it's fully automated and there's hardly a worker in the factory. They manufacture cell phones in a building that's, I don't know, 100 meters by 100 meters by 50 meters high with only one door and no windows. It's all dark and it's fully robotic.
Oh, wow.
It's there's nobody working in there. It's in the dark.
Wow.
It's a dark. It's called dark manufacturing. At the entry, you have a wheelbarrow of rare earths, and at the end, you have a cell phone. Not quite, but that's what it is. Components and all that all arrives. It's all standard and yeah. And electric car manufacturing is about the same, except the factory is like 5 kilometers by 5 kilometers. That's 3 by 3 miles.
Wow. I'm reading about dark manufacturing right now.
Okay.
Pretty interesting. I had not yet
So
heard.
when I started, you could, there was a saying in China, you could hop in the train and buy a ticket after. That is, you could, literally and figuratively, literally, you could just hop on the train and find somebody to buy a ticket. And with a little bit of extra money, you could even get a seat or something like that. But now, and figuratively, you could start your activity without registering a company. You could hire people, have a go at it without getting into the trouble of registering and doing all the paperwork and all that. And if it worked, then you would settle things down, do the paperwork, pay the tax and all that. You can't do this anymore. Now you need to show up with a capital. You could register a company with $1 million capital and only pay $100,000 of the capital. So you had a $1 million registered capital company that 10 years after still have $1 million, but you never pay the capital. You never register the capital. Now you can't do that anymore. Now it's the age of the individual going out and putting his flag in the ground and say that now this is going to be my factory. This is over. You've got to have a team. You have to have capital. And it's capital intensive if you want to have everything automated.
I mean, it's, well, there's also, although technically, my understanding is that China is very, very, very good at automation. Maybe
Yeah.
not optimization. Maybe optimization within current frame, like a current process. But as far as effectiveness, that a lot of times the innovation comes from the West.
Yeah. When you say optimization, it's two ends of the same rope. It's just in time versus just in case. And
Right.
China comes from just in case, and it's slowly moving towards just in time. It's not there yet. There's still a lot of things that you have to plan for just in case.
Hey, hey, what's up, Manu?
No, I was just eavesdropping in your conversation.
Yeah.
Just in time and just in case, just a fallacy. Doesn't exist.
Is that because of what we perceive?
No, just because of duality.
Explain.
It's like 3D, it's like 3D printing. You know, all of these things is you know, like you cannot talk about, let's just put it, effectiveness and efficiency is a product of two things.
Right.
It's a product of a digital time the amplitude.
Yeah.
You have to have the two. It's a product of those two. And we focus, you know, all of this concept is the digital part of it. The fastness just in like that. Well, you can build on it for a while, but it becomes fragile.
Oh, yeah.
You need anti-fragility. So therefore, from the fundamental point of view, it is locking ourselves and our mind into one phase. Whereas we know that at minimum, there are two phases.
Yeah.
And that the two phases are always playing together. They are interweaved. And they are interweaved in such a way that this part play with a fractal of that one. That is vibratory. You know, when you have all the vibrations, when you put a vibrator in concrete, the vibrator vibrates and mixes everything.
That's interesting.
Yeah. How is that related to just in time and just in case?
Well, but just in time is just a digital part. It is, well, this is going to be, it's like you talking only about causes and never talking about consequences of things.
Interesting. Hang on, I'm here.
I'm
If
sorry,
I take,
I don't understand. Let me explain.
okay, let me
I
take,
have a workshop. I have a factory floor that has to produce for tomorrow 10,000 products that need one component. If I just in time means those components arrive tonight and tomorrow morning they're on the factory floor and they can be assembled.
okay, so what will happen when the conditions?
Let me explain. That's just in time, high efficiency. I have tight control of my suppliers and all that, and everything arrives the day before production. It arrives, it goes to the factory floor, and the factory floor rolls it out, and I can load my container at the end of the day, and everything goes well. My 10,000 products are made. Tomorrow night, another 10,000 arrive, and the day after, I can do that again. That's just in time. I don't have to finance stock and all that. Just in case is, I have the stock, I have 100,000 in stock, 10 days production in stock, because those suppliers, maybe they come, maybe they don't come. And the longest time they keep me waiting is 10 days. So that with my 10 days stock, which I have to finance and all that, I know my factory floor is not going to stop. That's the difference between just in time and just in case. So if I'm in China, 25 years ago, year 2000, and I don't have 10 days or 15 days or 100 days stock of every component because my suppliers are not reliable, and it's unreasonable to expect they will deliver the day they said they would deliver. Then my factory floor is not working. So
Okay,
just in
can I
time,
respond?
so just in time cannot work. So I have to do just in case. So the difference of efficiency nowadays between the US and China is because between just in time and just in case, it's a spectrum, and China is slowly moving from just in case towards just in time.
That's
Can I say
interesting.
something?
Is that
They
a
will get there.
good?
I understand all what you're saying.
Good.
Okay.
So
All right.
so
Let me respond. Let me
that
respond.
exists,
Yeah, let me respond to what you said.
there's nothing to respond.
Oh,
So
okay.
go ahead. You can expand on what I say if you want to.
I can't lock myself in just in time. What happens if the supply is not there?
Then you lose money.
You say that you're telling me that you're sure of a supply every day to exactly manufacture your just in time. What
Yes.
happens what happens if there's COVID?
Well, then you're screwed.
That was,
But exactly, that's what I'm saying.
That's what we were in.
Yes.
In the States.
So the real thing is that of a trade-off.
Yes, that's why it's a spectrum.
There will be in what you call just in time, a smart guy will have a level of redundancy.
Well, it's not about being smart or not. It's about financing.
No,
It's
not financing. It's only
about financing. How much does it cost you to have a 10-day stock?
Okay, give me a chance to put my argument too. All right.
Give me 1 second. I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I am saying if the objective, let's just take the extreme case that the objective is your survival of something. It's our survival. And we use just in time all the time. What will happen? It means that we become specialized in specific conditions.
Yes.
What happens when those conditions, and we know that those conditions will change in the changing world.
Then you die.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
no more, our survival is no more ensured.
Yes.
So those who want to live the longest possible, that is to be resilient and effective, do a mix of both.
Yes, but what you say is completely true as long as you stay in your office. Once you go on the ground in a factory floor, you can't do that because you cannot finance it. Because your competitor goes just in time, you have to go just in time. Because
the world is perverse by finance. It shouldn't be the case.
No. Well, maybe, but the reality is that if you don't do like your competitor does, you lose because you know more, you outpriced. You're priced out of the market. So you have to go to push things to the extreme, go fully just in time. And instead of arriving yesterday, it arrives 2 hours before production or 1 hour before production. And then COVID happened and you die. But if you don't do it, you would not die when COVID happened. You would die way before.
But do you know that Bucky never talked about a world of a zero-sum game?
Yes.
It's fundamentally against the principle of synergy.
Yes.
So the world, Bucky doesn't talk about this world that we live in. He calls it the grunge of giants, the world in which we live in today.
Yes, but grunge of giants talks about huge multinational companies that have access to capital.
Not only that, it's called the principle of grunge of giant is that a zero-sum game.
when you're a small company and you don't have access to unlimited capital, you cannot have your production flow stop. And and especially when you're in China 25 years ago, you have to deal with just in case. And the only way you can get your factory flow working is having everything just in case and have stock of everything. That means you need to have extra storage, you need to have extra inventory management, and you need to have extra finance to maintain that. Plus, you need to
Yes.
have better forecasting, because whatever you purchase and you have in stock is something that is not covered by existing orders. So you've got to make sure that at some moment, somebody is going to purchase it from you. But I can understand you say that it does not exist, but you have to explain it better than what you did, because it does exist.
No, it does exist within the time frame. That's all.
Yeah, it's always you always have a moment you have to ship your orders.
Yeah, but it inevitably lead to pollution.
Maybe.
Meaning what's left over.
Yes. So the real anti-entropic and how will I call it? What's the word again? It is that you evolve close to that, as close as you can, in the most efficient possible, and then hatch out in another world. So in that way, you progress. You don't go into here and then catastrophe and rebuild again and there. You go into progressive change, into something better.
I disagree with that. Evolution is progressive until it's not, and then evolution is catastrophic, and then evolution is progressive again, and then evolution is catastrophic.
It could be. I say it could be. My anti-entropic.
Over a long period of time, it's always progression and catastrophe. Progression followed by catastrophe.
Okay. I wouldn't get into philosophy. What is long?
At least when you look at living organisms, like Darwin evolution is always catastrophic at some moment.
I'm not saying no. The question is in my anti-entropic state, because life, the me, meaning something, is anti-entropic.
Yes, and
okay. So it depends on how long that is and what is to be. So if you call catastrophe, still be conscious and change from fusion to fission, that is from a state of convergence to a state of divergence, but still conscious, yes. It's still me.
Catastrophe would be 98% of the population disappears.
Yeah, but only this way you call disappearance only if it disappears in the form that you call only if it's called population. Well, you can say it. This is we get into digging into philosophy now, and I like to be a little bit more practical, although I'm not always.
Yeah, well, that's very practical. Not non-practical, and non-practical would be, and that would tie up with Joe's reading The Economist. Non-practical would be to leave a population simulation to an economist, and then the population would go to minus 200 individuals and then rebound back to plus 2,000.
Okay, let me take a practical example.
Stop interrupting me.
Oh, interruption.
I'm in the middle of a sentence.
It is music.
Look. Sorry?
It's music. Okay, play.
This is impossible to discuss and be interrupted in the middle of something. All right, so what I was saying is, if you leave a population simulation to an economist or to a sociologist, they would have the population, allow the population go to minus number of individuals, and then have the population rebound over, and they would draw the wrong conclusions, because once your population goes to zero, it does not rebound ever. So that was sort of illustrating what I was saying. Catastrophe is when 98% of the population disappears, dies for one reason or another. Thank you for letting me finish this. Hello, Richard. How are you doing today?
Hello, everybody.
You're home.
I'm back in the cool weather.
When did you get back?
We got back at 9:30 this morning after an all-night flight. So just getting reorientated, and I'm glad to be back and glad to be connected. It's always a relaxing sort of location in the environment of Maui. Although
it's an expensive one too.
Yeah, it certainly can be.
Well, I mean, I remember our per diem whenever we had, Hawaii, in particular Maui, on our for travel. It was usually about 3 times higher, our per diem, each time we went out there, and so and that was including New York and LA and all the other New York the US cities, but they were always the highest. So yeah, it was a pretty big significant difference, and the whole goal was to get a partner to go out there with you so that then they could pick up the tab, and then you can keep your per diem. But it was something. Even this is back in about 2001. It was about $100 a day, which is a pretty high per diem, depending on your client, obviously. But it was even $100, I think, for government clients. I was doing private sector at that time, but it was up there. It's not cheap.
Yeah, well, the big hotels now, they're running about $800 a night.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, that's and like, what's the quality of that $800? Let me ask you that.
Well, that's all relative, I guess. But obviously, people who go to some of those big hotels, and they certainly are paying that. But now currently the big hotels like the Hyatts and whatnot, they normally run apparently around 80% capacity, and they now currently they're running about 53%. That might be because of some other reasons, but it also might be an indication that they're topping out in terms of their per diem. Yeah.
Well, that was interesting, and it's interesting because we were just talking, I think, about, I'm trying to think if it was Utopian or Oblivion or Grunch of Giants. I forget, where Bucky talked about the idea of essentially spending all our time in like any vacancy essentially could be rented out at any particular moment in time. In a way, he actually envisioned Airbnb. And I'm trying to think of which book that was in, whether that was Utopian or Oblivion or Grunch of Giants. It was in one of the two. But yeah, I mean, Hawaii is one of those places that you would think that would be, kind of in need of that type of efficiency, considering the costs that are associated with it over there. Now, I've also read, and I don't know if this is true, because Fred has actually just ruined my opinion of The Economist, but economists aren't social scientists. They're not sociologists, I should say. They're social scientists, they're not sociologists. There's a big distinction there, because I know, Fred, you lumped us in together for a moment there.
Okay.
And you did a nice, perhaps what some people would call almost a Freudian slip by saying economists are not socialists.
Well, they are. I mean, they're all types.
Okay. Welcome, Richard.
I'm not afraid of
Okay.
labor.
Okay, please. I want to talk here. All right. Thanks. Okay. Welcome, Richard. We were
Thank
talking
you.
about, yeah, we're talking about something, and what you said in my mind illustrates that very well. Joe said 10 years ago or many years ago, he went to Hawaii and he had some per diem. And then we say, you know, I heard the number. Let's just say that a hotel room of a certain quality was $100. Let's just put it that a night. And you telling me that, you know, currently is around about $800. And occupancy is about 53%. What it translates is that in our language, we've been locked into the phase of the dollar.
Yeah,
We reason, our currency
right.
of reasoning is a dollar. But what are we forgetting exactly? We're forgetting what you call the utility of a thing. And the account of a utility, that is the pure function of it, is not the dollar. You have to go, for example, to an anchor like gold. So what is $800 in an ounce of gold today? And what is $100 in ounces of gold 10 years ago?
Oh, I mean, there's a significant talk.
Then it gives you a real value of inflation.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about inflation that no, it is not a natural increase of prices, it is a theft.
Oh,
Somebody in the
It has
system,
been.
okay, somebody in the system is siphoning off resource. So if you don't have that global thinking and you lock yourself in a dollar, well, you are prone to be a victim.
Huh.
You will never be effectively anti-entropic in a system that evolves in dollars. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
You can't say, we're talking about AI. If I lock myself in AI and everything is AI, well, what become of what is my function in life? I become a slave.
Yeah.
I need to evolutionarily reposition myself in regard to that environment. What has changed? What has changed is the boundary conditions have changed, affecting my domain. And if I want to have a function that is a relationship that is effective within that new boundary, I need to reinvent myself or my role. What do? Today, I think that vis-a-vis the AI is that we become interpreter of fast results that is brought to us. We go back to our fundamental role of being winnowers of information and transmitters. For thinking to ensure that there is locally the regenerative property of universe. So that was my point. I'm saying that when you have a principle, in Bucky's language, never forget that principle. If you lock yourself in a phase, and much of our language in these days, it was .com, it was this and that, we lock ourselves in a phase, forgetting that something that is exceptional to that might happen and come in terms of black swan. And that's what creates catastrophe. So
get-
if we are anti-entropic, we might avoid catastrophe, but still evolve in a way that is very positive. We don't need to necessarily be Darwinian.
No, we can be anti-Malthusian.
Exact. Okay, so that was my point. Before we went, I had a tussle with Fred with regard to that.
A
Okay.
dialogue or a tussle?
No, it was a dialogue, a tussle. In that, but somebody has to listen to other and vice versa. That was it. And that's the anti-entropic device that we use to ensure that there's that flow.
Well, it's interesting because you've definitely read Taleb. I can tell you that. I can tell by the wording that you're using.
But that's what Bucky says.
It's what Bucky says too. No, I know.
Yeah, Bucky says that we are engaged in teleological design.
That's true.
It doesn't just say design, it says teleological. That is, we anticipatorily teleological design. We see where we want to go because we've been able to study the fool and know where it's going to. Or at least we know that if it goes into a certain direction, it is catastrophic. That's why he wrote The Grunge of Giants. If it kept going like that, it is catastrophic. Okay.
No, I was taking notes on something else Fred had taught me about was dark manufacturing. It was interesting. No, I mean, I think that Taleb's ideas are actually, to some degree, congruent with what Bucky was saying in many ways, especially when it comes to anti-fragility. But yeah, that's definitely they're on the same page there. There was one point about China's economy that I wanted to explore a little bit more deeply, and I'm now trying to remember the exact point. It'll come to me in a moment, but nonetheless, I mean, I agree with you. I do think that this is actually a period in time that a lot of Bucky's ideas are actually going to be able to come to fruition. I think the technology is actually catching up to where Bucky had. I think he had been. There's two things. I think he had been a little bit ahead on where the technology would be. I mean, he was a little bit off on that and his prediction. But I think he also underestimated the two things that I've noticed. Underestimated how politicians and politics can drown out innovation. I mean, that is something where he was, kind of very much saying that that the politics, when the technology would enable people or empower people enough to not necessarily allow politicians to dictate the policies that are of scarcity the way they do. But just out of curiosity, though, has anybody studied Malthus?
I certainly have superficially. The basic principles that Fuller enunciated and how Malthusian sort of economics was translated into a social, if you want, economics, sometimes attributed to Herbert Spencer. But apparently he was misinterpreted by some of his interpreters. He didn't mean what it actually has been said to be. But yeah, so I've explored it from that extent through Bucky's eyes to a certain extent, and also through the the social economic sort of eyes that traveled through Darwin and into the English poor laws and other kinds of social kinds of policies that try to um, ostensibly help people rise up, but really was a way of keeping them down and segregated and out of the mainstream of society.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things there is a kind of a Stoic exercise that focuses on actually it's a skeptic exercise technically, but where you say to what degree are you, how sure are you of what you believe to be true? And you go through the whatever it is, whatever it is that you're going to list, 99%, something 75%, something 60%, something, and you go through them. And a way of actually developing empathy is to take whatever you believe to be true, then state the opposite case. And one of the things that I did work through was Malthus. And it was interesting. I mean, it's not as if I still think that obviously he was completely incorrect. And I think primarily because of the way he looked at it in a very linear fashion. He did not account for things like ephemeralization. That was his biggest, what I'd say his biggest flaw, without a doubt.
You mean Malthus?
Malthus, yeah, he definitely. Yeah. I mean, so if you really look at what he go into what he was saying, but there are some things that he was not. I mean, he wasn't completely wrong on, and so that was an interesting exercise to go through, is to actually state what the other person is actually saying, and you go into the details. And the other thing is, there wasn't there's not a lot of quality measures on that either one of them were putting out. I mean, meaning again, you can produce, and I was just talking to Fred about this, you can produce massive amounts of something, of products, but it doesn't necessarily always represent the quality. Just as if the quality of life, like well-being and things like that. Anyway, it's interesting. Fred, yeah.
Thank you. We've got to put Malthus back in context.
Yeah.
I think he was 1810, something like that.
He was around the Enlightenment era. Yeah, I mean, it was like he was, I don't know, when was Condorcet around? It was about, around that time.
Around 1810. There was no statistics, no statistics, no figures available of anything. And Malthus just went on a trip, just like Darwin did, and observed for himself what was happening. And he was working for the
British East India Company.
The East India Company. And he went on a trip to collect numbers, and then he analyzed these numbers that he could find, and he noticed that population growth is exponential, whereas production of food is linear. And when exponential meets linear, it's not going to perpetuate itself. There's a moment where there will be scarcity of food, and therefore population will collapse. So his observation is correct based on what he observed. And the fact that he did not include ephemeralism and all that is just a reflection that there was no depth in his in the data that was available to him. All he had was what he was able to observe by himself and collect by himself during his trip. So his observation is correct. His observation is very sensible, very sensitive also. And but that doesn't mean we should make it a modus operandi for us. It's just one observation at one point in time that is completely correct.
Yeah,
The population growth is exponential, and food production is linear, and this doesn't work in the long term.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that is an interesting thing, because, and also, I mean, it was also countering, like, he was also countering narratives at the time that were also ended up being wrong. You know, that was the other thing, is that a lot of people during those periods of time that he was actually, now, you know, it's easy to go back and like say, well, this guy was really wrong, but during that time period, you know, there were a lot of people that had been overly optimistic as to where humanity was actually headed during that period. The idea that we weren't going to have any wars, and that and you know, that everything was going to, we're going to have you know, essentially excess of everything, and that science was going to solve all our problems. And that wasn't necessarily true either. Now, I do believe that Malthus in particular was. I think, you know, Fred, what you said is absolutely correct. If you just go by what you observed, the way he was looking at food production in particular, his numbers, given the data that he had, was actually correct. However, that's where I think he failed too. He didn't necessarily look into things like ephemeralization, and he didn't think about that.
That was not available to him. He was the first.
That's right. That's right.
He was the first to collect this kind of data, and the first to draw conclusions, to draw.
Yeah. Well, that's when you go back to what you were saying again, was context, because then when you put it into context, it then takes you into beliefs or values or ontologies, and when you operate from a kind of a binary type of understanding, then
Yeah, but you can't blame that on Malthus.
What's that?
You can't blame Malthus for that. You can blame the guy that came after and said try to generalize.
No, I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying that your earlier point about one must always put something into context, that was one of the contexts that and we still live by that context. We still live by the context of binaryism, and
to add
it's
to
either or, and we get into some of our own discussions around both and the importance of that, and that has to do with what kind of sense of reality do we operate from. I think that's where Fuller was coming from, that probably annoyed an awful lot of people, because he was really coming from a common good kind of perspective. And he was fairly critical of individualization, but he also recognized the underbelly side of both capitalism and communism, and realized that, you know, one overemphasizes the collective at the expense of the individual, and the other does the reverse.
In context, he came also at the moment where Marx with Das Kapital was coming up, and in the context of colonization, in the context of empires and extracting resources from countries to bring them back to the, yeah, absolutely.
There's also, I mean, you know, the thing that that Bucky didn't fall into the trap of is that specifically he thought of things holistically, and he thought about the human being, whereas neither one of those systems really consider that. They were only looking at material goods, and that's a really big difference. So he had a very kind of humanistic approach as far as when it came to actually, he assessed the material goods, but he didn't necessarily ignore the well-being of people. And that's where I feel like both Marx and capitalists go wrong, is that they both focus on only material goods. They don't necessarily focus on some of the things like being a humane or something like that, or the idea of how to make the world work for 100% of humanity. It wasn't just a material sense, it was also a social relationship sense. I mean, that's essentially what it is all about, is like the relationships between the nodes, not necessarily where he's just focusing on and the relationship between things, not just focusing on something in a binary sense. So that's really, I think, where Bucky actually differs from both of them. More than just it was much deeper than just looking at it as, kind of this hyper individualism. And that's the other thing, is the idea of individualism in itself is, there's a healthy form of it and there's an unhealthy form of it. There's the idea of you have your identity and you're separating yourself and you see how you fit into society, and you separate yourself in the sense that you are you. You're not going to let the collective dictate who you're going to date. And that's one aspect of it. But there is the unhealthy version as well, where everybody sees themselves as a self-made individual, and as if they don't exist in the system. And that individual, that's a perverted perspective. And this is actually empirically proven too, is that when you measure individualism across economies and countries, there are definitely different types. If you have to look at like kind of a whole set of data points, there's actually something called the Halstead Index that actually talks about there are forms of masculinity, and there's toxic masculinity that exists in certain cultures where it becomes hyper masculine. But there's also, you have to look at a lot of different combinations where there's a high degree of individualism, but it's the type of individualism when you really break it down. If it's an individualism that actually awards credit to the individual as if they did it all themselves, and that's what America actually scores very high on, then that's a toxic form, because it's not aligned to reality. It means that, they essentially award too much credit to the internal traits of the actor, meaning that the person did it on their own. So understanding those nuances, even the words like individualism or collectivism, they don't have, in and of themselves, people use them, and I think that they don't even necessarily understand what that means. Because there's so many different aspects to that. If you say individualism in certain circumstances, and that everybody should do the same thing, well, no, this is what I say. What happens if you're, if somebody's gay and then everybody has to do the same thing? Is that the type of collectivism that you want? No, of course you want somebody to be able to be themselves and pursue their own interests. But then there's the other individualism where, somebody thinks that well, they did everything on their own. Well, that's not a good form. So even when we use these words, I find them to be, I don't know, I find them to be used in a way that they're not even meaningful anymore. That's all. And that's where I really kind of start to think about what is it that Bucky actually said and what he talked about. And when he talks about relationships, that's a very different way of even looking at the economic perspective versus and looking at how things can work together and actually become more efficient. And that's the uniqueness of Bucky to me. I mean, but I do think it's dangerous to and it's one of those situations where I think, Fred, you pointed it out well. If you looked at, you know, kind of the numbers that Malthus was looking at, aside from the fact that he didn't, you know, account for certain things, you know, there were some things that he was, you know, kind of given the situation that he was in, it's easy to look back and say that that person's really wrong. And this is where right now, this is a big issue right now, because I think that there are a lot of economists now that are still, they may be right, I don't know, in the long run, but they may be also very, very wrong and underestimating what things like AI will actually be able to produce. And there are economists like at MIT, Nobel Prize winners that say that's only going to add 1 point to GDP. And that employment will only be impacted in a you know, not in a substantial manner way. That, but I don't, I mean, and if they're wrong, or, you know, at some point, are we going to look back? Their numbers actually look pretty good. I think what they're missing actually is some very important nuances. And that's one of them is, well, whether AI can code itself.
But the real problem is always that of our emphasizing too much of something, of the importance or utility of something of the past. If we realize that the past, is gone, whether Malthus, whether Dalton, whether anybody else, it is gone. We can only learn from it. That is, it is projected to us in a faded way. There are new conditions coming.
Yeah.
If we become ideologists of the past, we're going to have problems. And that problem is in our mind, in that we don't predispose our mind for the flexibility of the change that is happening, is always happening. First principle, energy always flows. It's not because energy brings us information by looping that cycle is the same. It's a different cycle. It's cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3 information. Although they look alike. Fred will call those, Steve will call those fractals.
Right.
So if we anchor our mind into one particular cycle, let's say the red cycle, or pattern, then we become ideologists, we become law, we become actually opposed to the dynamic that is inherent of a system. The only way to be progressive is to acknowledge that it is more than what we see or what we know. Therefore, we cast as variably as we can, at the highest dimension that we can. We accept that there are things that are going to be different. And then we become, therefore, flexible enough to accept that change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Let carry on with that, one of the things that's interesting for me, especially the reference to anti-something, I see it in my work all the time that we talk about anti-oppression, anti-racist, anti-this, anti-that. So what happens if we change the starting premise? Instead of going entropic, anti-entropic, what if we start with syntropic and then we have anti-syntropic? So what difference does it make in our minds or our context if with the baseline that we start with, and then we add the opposite or the anti or the underbelly side to it? Does it make a difference to start with syntropic and go to anti-syntropic instead of starting with entropy and going to anti-entropy? Because one assumes that the starting place is decay. The other one assumes that the starting place is um, growth or expansion or flexibility. And you have these other forces that do come in that sort of give you speed bumps. Anyway, I throw it out as part of our dialogue.
It's an interesting point. I would say that. You know, I think that the words need to be aligned to reality. And entropy is actually, you know, that's part of reality. So,
Well, but then start with reality. This is where you get into both Fuller and the whole idea of synergetics and holism, or you get into David Bohm's idea of reality being divided whole or undivided whole.
right.
And others will argue that there's lots of other variations of reality. So when one says, well, is reality or isn't reality, my assumption is that we come from a particular place in saying what we say. And that's what I've been interested in these recent years is whether it makes a difference in terms of declaring one's ontological understanding of reality, whatever that might be, before we go into our additional discussions around epistemology or pedagogy and those sorts of things.
Well, that is important, and this is where, I mean, somebody that, again, I mentioned this in the past, that is working on a universal communication system based off of shapes and colors that actually would enable us to kind of get away from what exactly you're exactly saying there. And so that, you know, the framing would be completely different in that sense. And basically what you're saying, how do words shape our reality? And you know, and I agree with that. There's an element of truth to what you're saying. Sometimes I would say then there has to be some kind of neutral way of kind of communicating ideas in general and identifying patterns within nature, or even having an approach that is able to identify those patterns. It's a challenge. I mean, there's a lot of ideas even there with the idea of compression in particular. How do you compress concepts into shapes? And this is where you have compression algorithms and things along those lines. And it's, I think what you're bumping up against is the limitation of words. And then our framing aspects of things. And how does our framing shape reality? Sure.
I also think it's a limitation of mindsets. And
Well,
that's where
mindset. I mean, the idea of
that's where you come into some of the writings of Thomas Kuhn and his scientific revolution idea. And why did he pick revolution as the partner word in his title? Um,
'Cause you can-
and his argument is that because once a paradigm is locked in, the protectors fight like hell to keep it, and they won't give it up easily. And-
it's interesting because when I read that, I don't necessarily, I don't know how. No, I mean, I've read sparingly about Kuhn, and he's right. I mean, he's right. But I felt like there were a lot of theories that captured what he was saying at some point. That there are incumbents that are actually willing to do anything to maintain their position until the ability to even maintain that position is undeniable, that there's a shift, whether it be policy or there's an external event that actually can, like climate change or something like that, that then can bring on a paradigm shift, or where a certain approach is no longer sustainable. That I don't know. I really felt like that to a lesser extent. I mean, there's some even ideas like of creative destruction in there. And creative destruction is actually, it's an old idea, even though the two of the Nobel Prize winners or three, this past time, actually this year, won the Nobel and just for that very idea. And so, I mean, I don't know. It's I know that Kuhn's was very well thought of, very highly thought of, and I think it was warranted. But at the same time, I think sometimes it's the framing of the idea, as you were saying, the words.
Okay. Can I put it in a certain way? Let me first put you some kind of conundrum. I don't know if it's the word conundrum is appropriate. There's faith and creed.
Mm.
And then in the beginning, there are the poles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have poles, there is a direction. Do you agree? But in that direction, there's one before the other, so to say. I say that if I have an arrow like this, I start here, and then I take the arrow there. Yes, I will see the minus and the plus that exists as a whole in significance. But there was this one. There was the minus before. So if we really want to be complete, being in the system, we have to have faith. That is the whole first. Then we have to practice the creeds of understanding that whole. So to me, the only approach that is really complete is the Bohmian one. We have to accept that in order for us to even see where we're going to, we have got to understand that there was a hole and we are in that hole. We're not out of it. If we do that way, then we're able to see Steve's fractals.
Mm-hmm.
And our role is to divide in such a way that we land on fractals. Because fractals are divided, are factors, stable factors of the whole. Do you accept that definitions? If a whole has characteristic, a fractal of that is something smaller that is inside it, a subpart of it, that share the same characteristics, say, of stability, specifically. So our role is to first have faith in that.
How is that a fractal? It's a fraction, but not a fractal?
No, I say a subset that is stable, that share the same stable characteristic of a whole.
Yeah, but
It's a
that's a
fractal
fraction.
of something.
That's a
A
fraction.
fractal. A fractal of a space. A fractal is a stable pattern. Or maybe you have a different definition. What is a fractal of a system?
Fractal is a repeating process.
Yeah.
Pattern.
It is a pattern that is as stable as, that have the same characteristics. Like, you know, it is a fractal. Let's just say I have a sphere and I inflate that sphere and I look at how do you call it? A geometric progression of that. I have a sphere into another sphere, you know, like that and like that. Those are fractals because they're all spherical.
Yeah, well, then the other way of looking at it is to take a triangle and divide it the midpoints, and you get a fractal.
Yes.
You get 4 fractals of the triangle, and then you can just
Yes.
keep doing that forever and ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe Fred has another definition because it's looking inquisitive. I know that when he look inquisitive like that, he's looking for something. So maybe he has it. So that is my method. The only way that if we lock ourselves into starting with details and then trying to build the whole is bound to be problematic.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
We need both. We need to have and back of our mind that, hey, there is something. And that boils down to the individual. It boils down to what you call humility. Because not being humble individually means that you think that everything that you know is all that is required.
Right.
So you don't want to be a low point, right? For example, when Fred says, I have to listen, I was being proud. So I have to lower myself to allow his energy to flow towards me. And the flow of that energy is what is going to inform me. So if it is able to inform me that way, it means that my assumption that what I knew was completely primal is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What I knew is just a small part of something. There are many other points. Imagine the explosiveness of that. That is exponential because how many points do we have? That is my take of it. If we don't accept that, we're always going to tending to get into ideology and fights and things, and then creating noise and heat and pollution. That is, pollution is information. Remember the definition that Susan gave us?
What is
Pollution is the left after, is what we don't use.
Right.
But it's being used for something else. It's not because we don't use it that is not used. It gets into the background and creates something else, another monster.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
I like what Fred was putting in there. What the one curious part of that little presentation is, for me, the last part, the pictures of chaos. Where is it here? fractals are, well, it's interesting. Fractals are images of dynamic systems, which I certainly understand. And then there are pictures of chaos. And that's what is really interesting for me, is that as I got to understand chaos in a chaos context, I realized that chaos is not the chaos in our sort of normal living context. Because chaos is highly ordered, highly sort of patterned, highly sort of self-repeating. And in that sense, chaos is order. And I have found that in my work over the years of being very interesting departure, where most people, when they talk about chaos of living, it's talking about a pretty messy, upset, troublesome, problematic kind of experience. Whereas chaos, for me, in the way in which Fred has just written about it, is highly ordered and patterned. And it's I always like what David Peat and John Briggs did in their book called Turbulent Mirror, talking about how chaos and order work together. And so chaos in the normal sense of what we think of it is underneath order, and underneath chaos, messiness and all that sort of stuff is underlying order. And so they manifest themselves back and forth in terms of sometimes life is very ordered and sometimes it's very chaotic. And that again gets you into the dynamical system. You actually get a flux or a flow back and forth between this notion of order and chaos. And you need both. Becomes another one of these both and. Yeah, so that's is what you put down there, Fred, is that from a particular source, or is it an accumulation of sources that you are
Which one?
connected with? Or
The fractal definition?
yeah,
There's two definitions. One is the first paragraph in Wikipedia, but I was not happy with it because it doesn't say what it is. The second one mentions self-similar across different scales, which is what fractals are. You want you want the source of it? It's I put the source of it here. Here. Edit. I edit the source just underneath. I think there's difference between chaos, complex, random, and fractals.
Absolutely.
It's important to know the
Very much so.
distinction.
Actually, that's another one of my takeaways. Is, you know, kind of I'm compiling my own little glossary.
I did not vet the sources. I just took the definition.
Okay.
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if this source is interesting.
Being able to draw that delineation is really important. Even in language, you know, it's just
I usually like to write my own definitions because it's verification that I understand. No, it's a verification.
I think it's essential,
that
actually.
I understand the concept, and then it removes other people's bias. It keeps only mine.
You're right, exactly. So the world revolves around you. No.
But sometimes it's not so easy. So fractal, I was a little bit had difficulties to come up with a definition easily.
Yeah. Fred, if you take your last, chaos is a large variation from tiny dimensions in initial conditions. How do you
different.
differ that? How do you differ that from leverage?
Well, it's nothing to do with leverage. Chaos, basically, it's differential equations. When you take a differential equation, you got initial conditions before you get the system to evolve. And if you have tiny differences in the initial conditions of your differential equations, you get random, I mean, not random, but very large variations in the outcome of it that you cannot predict from the small dimensions. So
Okay.
the leverage is a mechanical device that you can use a small force to have a big effect, something like that. It's,
But what you say, in my mind, sound very similar.
no, one is predictable, the other one not.
It sounds very,
If you want to compare this, you take leverage and you apply your lever at this position and a force on it. And then you apply your lever at this position, which is very slightly different, and you apply on it. And then you observe the effect you have. If you have a completely different effect, maybe you have chaos. If you have an effect which is about the same, that the rock you're trying to move just moved away, then it's not chaotic.
No, I'm talking about what you wrote. I'm not saying that that's what it is. I'm saying you say chaos is large variations from tiny differences in initial conditions.
Yes.
And I say that if I take that and you put it beside trim tab and beside lever, extreme lever, what is the difference?
What's the difference between a cow and a banana?
Well, you say, no, we are defining chaos. Yes.
No,
It's
one
a more general term.
one is more measured, if you want, and the other is more random in terms of what the gap is between one outcome and another.
I agree with you, Richard, but take it this way. What do you call randomness?
Random?
Hold on.
If you observe just the output, random
hold on.
and chaos can be exactly the same.
Yeah.
But if you observe the process, random and chaos are completely different.
Okay, I agree with you. Okay. But if you take the measure of random as a stochastic stuff.
Yes.
So therefore, you are taking probabilities as a measure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You might argue that at the more generalized, very high level, it is the same. Well, it is like saying, yes, it is like saying entropy is a variation is kind of order.
Right.
It's like an economist that would say, in the long term, everybody's dead. Yeah, okay.
All right. But remember that we are trying in this reasoning to see the topological similarities at the same time and linking them to the, call it mechanical or structural small variations.
Okay, I understand that. Now we've got to keep in mind, back to historical circumstances here. Fractal, the term fractal does not appear once in Bucky's work. Bucky died in 1983, if I'm correct. And Mandelbrot came up, the guy that expanded the fractal something, came up with that in 1960.
Late 40s.
Late 40s? But it became public knowledge, I would say, sometimes in the late 70s.
Yeah. And Poincaré came up with it at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
So it's scotoba, it's a blind spot of Bucky. The same with chaos. It's a scotoba, it's a blind spot of Bucky. Chaos appears, I think, 19 times in synergetics, but always in the context of disorder, in the meaning of disorder, never in the meaning of the mathematical chaotic behavior that was defined in 1989, I believe.
Mhm.
So we have to
Yeah, good point.
we have to keep those things in mind when we study Bucky.
That's a great.
Yes, and I agree with you, Fred. We should not be. Bucky is not the Bible. Let's just put it that way.
Well, it's
It is just a pointer. We shouldn't constrain our own. Otherwise, we won't have any contribution.
right.
Bucky is probably Bucky. Let's say Bucky is 95% exact, whereas Bible is about 0%.
No, I'm just saying it's not. We shouldn't take it. We shouldn't take Bucky ideologically. That was what I'm
I
saying.
understand what you mean. I just wanted to put that back in context also.
Okay, that was my point.
Anybody have any?
It's 1 o'clock. It's
Anybody want to cover their take?
time is upon us.
What time is it?
Yeah.
Yo, okay, all right.
Yeah,
But it was interesting. Again,
Yeah.
thanks, Fred.
Okay, so
You
Manu,
are-
what's
you are
your
a master-
takeaway?
you are a master-
In 1 word,
yeah.
what's your takeaway and how do you feel?
I'm very happy. I think that I've grown. To be truthful, if you notice during this call, I try to self-correct myself. When there's a loop that comes with light to me, it might not be apparent, but when Fred said I was interrupting him, I tried to change. If you notice that I will blind my audio, and then I will force myself to try to listen. So I'm growing, and I'm learning subtleties. Therefore, the fold and unfold of things. When we talk about expansion, we are folding, and it's very interesting. It is a very interesting concept. When we talk about expansion, mathematically we are folding. When we talk about compression, mathematically we are unfolding. If we're talking about dimension-wise. Remember that the icosahedron has a volume of close to 20. When a tetrahedron is 1. It is something, it's the same thing as if you want to illustrate what you call stability with a trough stuff and the pendulum movement. The more stable is something that can swing the widest without going overboard. The least stable is something that will go overboard if there is a smaller swing. And that's my taking away, is that ability and that learning that we can self-correct, being anti-entropic in what we are learning, being refocused by applying principles instantly. Otherwise, I'm grateful and thankful. So let's take Joe, because Richard, you were later than me. How do you feel? What do you take away?
I feel pretty good. I actually, there are about 4 or 5 things actually that I've taken away. This whole weekend, actually, I've had a lot of stuff to follow on, even actually going back to earlier in the week, just some things that where I was proven wrong, actually, or my understanding was wrong on a couple of different things. But this evening, I really like the idea that the way we talked about context and economics, but I also very much on the idea of dark manufacturing and looking at that in particular. Also looking at the Western media with a little bit more of a critical eye based off of some feedback that I was received from Fred there a moment ago. Actually, and if there's time at some point, I do think that looking at that video that I put in the chat, that Fullerton video, is actually references a lot of Bucky's principles in economics. And I would suggest it's 40 minutes, it's worth watching. And he brings Bucky up in the actual video itself. And I think his ideas are really compelling when it comes to how how we looked at it, things from a scarcity viewpoint, but also even the way we looked at monetary theory and how it was absolutely based off of an idea of scarcity and essentially diminishing value within currencies. It's interesting. It's based off of regenerative economics. So I think at some point, if we even discuss that for a little bit of time, I think that even Steve would be up for that too. So there are a couple different takeaways. I mean, I like to think about things. Thomas Kuhn had come up, and I appreciate it. I appreciate what Richard said about the wording as well, but also the fact that bringing Thomas Kuhn up and kind of really thinking about how he's moved the ball forward when it comes to paradigm shifts. I just need to look into it deeper. There's too many people that have absolutely subscribed to what he says to ignore it. So I have some follow-on tasks. Anyway, Richard, how are you feeling? What are you taking away from today?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm back home. But I guess my big takeaway was my earlier question to myself. It's whether or not the time changes affected the start time. The answer is yes. I came in at my usual time, and I was worried that I should have come in an hour earlier. And so now I've made that adjustment. That my big takeaway will be making that adjustment for the next sort of time change period. Yeah, so it's these are dialogues that I certainly don't get into on a day-to-day basis with too many people. And so it's always really fulfilling to be part of this kind of dialogue and as you say, and doing what Manu was just saying a few minutes ago of how sometimes you can look at something and you think it's in an expansion mode, but it really isn't. It's in a folding mode, and vice versa. And that's what was intriguing me when I was first introduced to chaos theory back in the 90s, I believe it was. And my first introduction was through a book called Turbulent Mirror by John Briggs and David Peat, which is really a theoretical physicist and a creative art person that had combined together to write the book. And I was at that time deep into trying to address the issue of personal crises in life and teach to a course called Crisis Management. And when I read the understanding of equilibrium in a chaos context and equilibrium in a traditional context, I realized that in the traditional context, we saw equilibrium as sort of a stabilizing factor. So equilibrium was defined as static in a sense, with the notion of balance. And when you were in crisis, you were in disequilibrium, and the objective, either whether you self-corrected or whether others helped you correct, was to get back to a previous equilibrium. And chaos theory, of course, one of the things it was teaching is in terms of like the flow of the river. The river never comes back to an earlier point. It does not return to an earlier place. And I understood equilibrium in that kind of context, that once you were in crisis and you were coming out of that into another kind of equilibrium, you weren't going back to a previous equilibrium. You were actually moving into a different combination of what would be called equilibrium. And the chaos writers at the point were saying the ultimate or preferred equilibrium in human living is far from equilibrium, because by their definition, ultimate equilibrium, the flat line, was equivalent to the flat line on a heart monitor. In other words, you were dead. And so the idea was for us in life to be as robust and as dynamical as possible, and to have a context or a society that in fact caters to your robustness and allows it and helps you fulfill yours, which comes back to what Joe, you were saying earlier in terms of individual and collective, how it's a dance, if you want, between those concepts. And so, yeah, this really reawakened some of those kinds of feelings and thinkings that I experienced some years ago, and I appreciate the opportunity to rethink them, relive them, re-dialogue them with others. Fred, how are you feeling, and what's your takeaway?
Thank you, Richard. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling enthusiastic, and enthusiasm is what creates difficulty sometimes in communication. And we just want to say something and just say it and cut the other, and that's not good. So we should all pay attention to that. And not just Manu, just me also, because I do it and all that. And but enthusiasm is very good. It's very good because it's energy, and it's what moves mountains. My takeaway is context, placing things in context. It's very important. And the 70s and beginning of the 80s was the context in mathematics was agent-based models, where game of life, these kind of things. And, the 90s was chaos. Everybody was chaos. The 2000s was differential equations, like models with millions of differential equations and basically matrix multiplications and all that. The 2010s was artificial intelligence, and the 2020s we don't know yet because it's we're still into it. So context is very important. That's why when you go to study somewhere, that's why online studies is not as complete as on-site studies with access to mentors and to teachers. Is that having access, is that somebody said, I forgot who said that, but I fully agree with that, is that you don't choose a topic of study. You choose a teacher and you study what he teaches just to have access to that teacher and his guidance. Well, anyway, that's my takeaway. Thank you very much all for showing up today. And everybody was right on time because time does not exist.
All right. All right, guys.
Manu, you muted for your last say.
Did anybody hear about Steve? Where is he? He's very silent.
He's playing the guitar somewhere.
Yeah, he's at
okay.
an event. So I'm hoping Lee is with him. I didn't see her yet. She hasn't shown up either. So anyway, we'll follow up tomorrow.
Okay. And I know Anne said that she has a
and put her name her response.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to her.
All right.
Take care.